Namo Buddhaya. Namo Ratanataya. So, good evening and greetings to everyone on this new moon night, to our Venerable Bhikkhunī, Ācarinī, and also to the Venerables who are on retreat right now, who we normally see at this time, but who are in their silent, intensive, personal retreat time, thinking about them and wishing them well, and greetings to all our dear Venerable Bhikkhunis and seminaries at Anagarika, at Aranya Bodhi, Awakening Forest Hermitage on the Sonoma Coast, and also to our seminary and Anagarika who are here together at the monastery, but off camera. So, it's the new moon night here in the Petaluma Valley beneath Sonoma Mountain, and it's getting a little colder. We have a cold front in. It was just seeming like spring, and now we have predictions of cold and rain and sleet and snow coming. So this is anicca. I was sitting here quietly before we began and just thinking, this wonderful feeling in the meditation hall. Is this a wildly pleasant feeling or an unworldly pleasant feeling? This is one of the things that we're looking at with Vedanānupassana. So let me begin. This is our third of our 2023 winter retreat Uposatha programs. It's the February 20th new moon, 2 weeks, one fortnight after the Maggo full moon, according to the lunar calendar that we're following. And that brings us to Vedanānupassana. So I'm so glad to come to this time. My co-teacher during this winter retreat, as many of you know, Ayya Brahmawada, has already begun teaching, speaking on the Vedanānupassana, looking at the Vedana Samyutta. If you're interested and you haven't caught her teachings on this so far, I'd recommend going to our Dhammadharini Monastery YouTube page and taking a listen and a watch and joining in together. So this year's winter retreat, our title or our theme is Ekāyano Maggo, where the whole path comes together, returning home to the Satipatthanas. And this new moon day now is actually in the Himalayas, called Losar. It's the Tibetan or Himalayan New Year on the lunar calendar. I'd like to note that sometimes this coincides with the Chinese or East Asian Lunar New Year, but this year being a lunar leap year. On the Chinese calendar, that already happened 1 month ago. Similarly with the South and Southeast Asian lunar calendars, the Thai lunar calendar is 1 month later this year due to the leap year, but we will all get back together again later on in the year in time for the Vasa, when the Sri Lankan and Cambodian and Indian lunar calendars will all have leapt. So then we'll be back together again. So for our Vedanānupassana program, again the third in our Satipatthanas series, although we had a bonus program last week, Nibbana Santike, in the presence of Nibbana, in commemoration of Mahapajapati Gautami Therī and our Bhikkhunī founders' Parinibbana Day. which was also the Nibbana day of another great disciple of the Buddha, Mahamoggallana Thero. And today is the Nibbana day of another leading great bhikkhu disciple of the Sambuddha, Satipattha Thero. A very small portion of his relics, which were brought from Burma, we revere here today. Put my hands in the right direction. If you can see the light up above here, they're enshrined. Where the light is above Aya Brahmavada, Namora Tanataya. My homage to all the great awakened Arahant disciples of the Buddha, and remembering Satipattha, like general of the Dhamma. Satipattha Thero realized stream entry first, but then it took him 1 week longer to complete the path and to become an Arahant through his valiant right effort with guidance and encouragement from the Buddha. So we remember and celebrate this today, keeping all of the Arahants close to our hearts in our attention and intention and efforts.
Tathālokā Therī Sahampati Katanjali Anadivaram Ayachata Santi Dasatta Parajajatika Dese tu Dhammam Anukampimam Pajam.
Sadhu, Anumodana, for the invitation to teach, to speak on the Dhamma. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhaṃ Dhammaṃ Sanghaṃ Namasami. So let's begin with the Satipatthana intro. Ekāyano ayang bhikkhave Maggo satanang visuddhya soka paridhevanang sammatikamaya dukkhadomanāsanang atankamaya nyāyasa adhikamaya nibbānasa sachikiriyaya yadidang chattaro satipattana. Because there is this one-way path for the purification of beings, for the overcoming of sorrow and lamentation, for the disappearance of pain and grief, for the entry into and knowledge of the noble path, for the realization of Nibbana, namely these four foundations for the establishment of mindfulness. Vedanasu Vedanānupassī viharati atapi sampajano satima vinaya loke apicca thomanasang. Here, a bhikkhu abides contemplating feelings, in feelings, ardent, alert, and mindful, having put aside covetousness and distress for the world. So, the root, where it all comes together. Vedana is the meeting place, the place of convergence. Venerables and Dhamma friends, if the religious of other religions or the philosophers of other philosophies were to ask you, all things have what as their root? What produces them? What's their origin? What's their meeting place? What is their chief? What is their ruler? What is their overseer? What is their core? What is their culmination? What is their end? How would you answer them? The Buddha asked. They replied, "This teaching is rooted in the Blessed One." What does the Blessed One say? He said, you should answer them thus. All things are rooted in desire. They come into being through attention. Contact is their origin. Feeling, Vedana, is their meeting place. They converge upon Vedana. Samadhi is their head. Mindfulness is their ruler and exercises authority over them. Wisdom is their overseer. Freedom, liberation is their core. They culminate in the deathless. Their consummation and final end is in Nibbana. This is from the Mulaka Sutta, the discourse on the roots, from Anguttara Nikaya, Book of 10, Sutta number 58. Let's take a look at feeling, Vedana, as the meeting place. In Pali, Sammo Sarana. What is this Sammo Sarana? This meeting place, this place of convergence. I'll give you some context. In Magadha, the Jains, a Jain community, had appeared and was present and widespread in the area, sometimes called the Majadesh, or Middle Earth, we can say. Even before the Buddha's Great Awakening, and also at the time that he began teaching and as his teaching spread. I'll let you know in context for me too. I began learning Sanskrit as a teenager when I began yoga classes in college. So I studied Pali later, with many Pali words already somewhat familiar to me from Sanskrit. So now I go the other way, from Pali back to the Indic languages, but my time in Sri Lanka, my time in India from early on, because I went to India more than 30 years ago, and I've returned, also Sri Lanka, I've returned, I'm not sure how many times, but there's so much that's actively used in the language. So while I've been formally studying the Buddha's teaching in Pali, meanwhile, if I listen to a Dhamma talk, as I often did in Thailand, in Sri Lanka, in India, then I got to hear the quote in Pali together with a translation that contains a lot of Sanskrit and Prakrit words. Yes, so, and then also those words are regularly used in people's conversations. So there's the context there. Someone might wonder, like, why am I looking into these things? Why am I coming back to this? And I find it's actually important integration for myself and for anyone else who might attend yoga classes or who might be familiar with Buddhist teachings from a little bit or a lot from other traditions, or who might have lived in South or Southeast Asia, anywhere, or visited there, studied there, practiced there extensively. Perhaps it could help and support as well. I note that all dhammas arise in context. This is context. Without context, Dhamma is said to be quiescent. It's only when the conditions or the context is present then the Dhamma will arise and emerge. So in the context of the Buddha's own home wandering area, there were widespread groups of other kinds of samanas, including the Jains. For the Jains, they were calling the meeting place, convergence, this Sammo Sarana. Then it's been passed down as Sammavasharana or Shamvo Sharana, Shamvo Sharan, something like this. And it refers to the gathering of the realm of the Dhamma. This word is used for a Dhamma teaching hall that in the Jain context is said to be like the great Dhamma teaching hall erected by the Devas for the Tirthankaras. The Tirthankaras for the Jains are like their enlightened ones, right? In it is erected a jeweled lion throne and a footstool with 3 white umbrellas over the top, symbolizing mastery of the 3 realms. At the gate of this hall, they set up a Dharma chakra, a shining wheel of the Dhamma. It's a sacred place to come into darshana with the realized ones and to see, hear, and know the sacred Dhamma. This Sammo Sarana, or Sammavasharan, is found in inscriptions in Sanskrit, Prakrit, and Dravidian languages. In popular Hinduism, it's the place of descent of a deity from the heaven, as well as the aim, the goal of the spiritual life. Also in Tantra, Yoga, it's the place of holy learning, as well as the conditions for attainment and the place of that attainment. So our Buddha, the Tathāgata, the Blessed One, simply and profoundly spoke such of Vedana and Vedanānupassana as the Sammo Sarana. Of Vedana and Vedanānupassana. Let's begin with our meditation time. For those online, we're doing a test to see if the sound of the bell will come through now with the Zoom. Can see. We're going to be briefly beginning with Kāyanupassana, mindfulness of the body and breath that we've already established. And then we're going to be working with and further developing what will become very familiar patterns And our training and skill in this will support our going further and deeper into mindfulness and insight as the Buddha taught it. Soka paridevanang sammatikamaya, for the overcoming of sorrow and lamentation. Dukkha dhamanasanang attangamaya, for the disappearance of pain and grief. Nyayasa adhikamaya, for entry into and attaining knowledge of the noble path. And nippanasa sachikiriyaya, for the realization of nibbana, the experience in truth of nibbana for oneself. So we'll begin briefly with Ekāyano, mindfulness of the body and breath that we've already established, and then move, after not a long time, into Vedanānupassana. Let's begin with setting up our posture, bringing mindfulness to the fore, setting up our mindfulness. Mindful of the body and of the breath. Breathing out long, breathing in long, breathing out short, breathing in short. Breathing sensitive to and aware of the whole body. Experiencing the whole body. Breathing out and breathing in, calming the whole body. Training ourselves in calming. Noticing the point of contact of the breath, like the simile of the saw, and the whole length of the breath. Focus on the seeing and knowing qualities. Knowing and seeing, seeing and knowing. Pajanati, with the breath. Training oneself in being sensitive. Aware and experiencing the whole body as we breathe in and out. Training oneself in calming everything of the body. Coming to the refrain, our home base. In this way, contemplating the body internally and externally. Also both internally and externally. And as when we've been training ourselves in calming everything of the body, and as when we've been contemplating the body internally and externally, feelings were noticed. Vedana was noticed. Now we intentionally bring our attention to Vedana with the quality of pajanati. Pa plus janati, prajanati, prajnanati. To know, to find out, to come to know and understand and distinguish yatha bhutang, what is really, truly happening there with this. A clear and special knowing. That's a kind of discernment made stronger by mindful, intentional anupassana. Looking into with the mind, applying and directing the mind to see clearly and discern clearly, to know things as they really are. Vedana, 3 feeling tones. When we become aware of feeling a pleasant feeling, we clearly know, I feel a pleasant feeling. When feeling a painful feeling, we clearly know, I feel a painful feeling. When feeling a neither painful nor pleasant feeling, we clearly know, I feel a neither painful nor pleasant feeling. Samisang, Niramisang, of the flesh and of the body, or not of the flesh, not of the body, for the 3 feeling tones. Discerning whether a feeling is physical, of the body, or not. Can you find any pleasant or pleasurable feeling, or feeling of happiness or bliss anywhere? When feeling this pleasant feeling of the physical body, of the flesh, clearly know, I feel a pleasant feeling of the flesh, of the body. When feeling a pleasant feeling that's not of the flesh, or not of the body, clearly know, I feel a pleasant feeling that's not of the flesh, not of the body. Can you find any unpleasant feeling? Any feeling of pain or irritation or discomfort anywhere? When feeling this unpleasant, uncomfortable feeling of the physical body, of the flesh, clearly know, I feel an unpleasant, uncomfortable feeling of the flesh, of the body. When feeling an unpleasant, uncomfortable feeling that's not of the flesh, not of the body, clearly know, I feel an unpleasant, uncomfortable feeling that's not of the flesh, not of the body. And can you find any neither pleasant nor painful feeling anywhere? Whether lots of it or a little bit, somewhere. When feeling a neither pleasant nor painful feeling of the physical body, of the flesh, clearly know, I feel a neither pleasant nor painful feeling of the flesh of the body. When feeling a neither pleasant nor painful feeling that's not of the flesh, not of the body, clearly know. I feel a neither pleasant nor painful feeling that's not of the flesh, not of the body. We come back to the refrain, home base. In this way, we contemplate Vedana, feelings, internally, then externally, then both internally and externally. At first, this is with regards to ourselves only, ajatang, our own interior experience of our inner world. We then expand the same to discerning, recognition, and this clear and special knowing that's mindful, intentional, clear knowing and noticing, now using our memory to what we can perceive outside ourselves, bahita. Our experience of the external world at large, what we perceive as outside of ourselves. Can you remember seeing someone, human or non-human, experiencing pleasant feeling? What did it look like, or sound like, or feel like? Notice, was that pleasant feeling of the body, of the flesh, or not of the body, not of the flesh? Was there a part that was physical and a part that was not physical? How do you know? Reflect back and note that clearly. Just know whatever you do know about it. And then, can you remember seeing someone, human or non-human, experiencing unpleasant, uncomfortable, painful feeling? What did that look like, or sound like, or feel like? Notice, was that unpleasant, uncomfortable, painful feeling of the body, of the flesh? Or not of the body, not of the flesh? Was there a part that was physical and a part that was not physical? How do you know? Reflect back and note that clearly. Just know whatever you do know about it. Note and be aware, whatever you do know about it. You don't have to grasp anything else or seek it. This is receptive to what you do know, what you do feel, what you do sense. Just to know and be aware of it clearly. Discerning way. It's illuminating your experience and what you do know. Can you remember seeing someone, whether human or non-human, experiencing neither pleasant nor painful feeling? What did that look like? Or sound like? Or feel like? Notice, was that neither pleasant nor painful feeling of the body, of the flesh, or not of the body, not of the flesh? Was there a part that was physical and a part that was not physical? How do you know? Reflect back and note that clearly. Just know whatever you do know about it. In this way, contemplating Vedana, feelings, in feelings, internally, then externally, then both internally and externally. Coming back to the home base, we observe and contemplate the nature of arising with regards to feelings, in feelings. In every moment there are feelings. One after another, all of them either sukha or dukkha, or neither sukha or dukkha. Do we sense them, see them, know them as they're appearing? Then observe and contemplate the nature of passing and disappearing with regards to feelings, in feelings. Sometimes we can see it in a moment, very momentary. Every mind moment, one or another of these three feeling tones is appearing and disappearing. If we're not used to it, sometimes we need a little longer to notice. Or we need to do something like I push my fingernail into the end of my finger just to notice, oh, it's the appearing of a feeling. And then tingling, changing, disappearing. Feeling appearing and disappearing. Observe and contemplate the rising and passing nature of phenomena with regards to feelings, in feelings, whatever feelings they may be, whether gross or subtle, near or far. In this way, mindfulness of feelings, of Vedana, is set up and established, at least enough for basic awareness and knowledge. And we abide in the knowing. Just in the knowing, with mindful, reflective awareness, establishing just this knowing and awareness, becoming established in just this knowing and awareness, not clinging to anything in the world. In this way, we contemplate feelings internally, then externally, then both internally and externally. We contemplate the rising of feelings, the passing and disappearing of feelings, then the rising and passing of feelings. Abiding in only the knowing, with reflective mindfulness, aware of awareness, of being aware, not clinging to anything in the world. Vedanasu, Vedanānupassī, viharati, atapi, sampajano, satima, vinayaloke, apicha, tomanasang. One abides contemplating feelings in feelings, ardent, alert, and mindful, having put aside or putting aside greed and distress for the world. Evam bhikkho bhikkhoe, bhikkhu, vedanasu, Vedanānupassī, viharati. And this, bhikkhus, is how one abides, looking into and contemplating feelings in feelings. Let us take some moments to come back to the body and breath. Were those joining online able to hear the bell this time? Yes? Okay. Success to our tech support with appreciation. As we move, as we shift our posture, see if we can do so still with the sense of our meditation, touch of the body, feelings. Bring that into whatever movements of body, of feelings, of mind, with the Dhamma. To be intentional about that. Moments that we consider to be moments of transition are very important. When we feel we're ending something, when we feel we're beginning something, when we feel we're in a threshold between one thing and another thing, these are especially important moments, opportunities. When we think we're beginning something, to bring that intention in, be intentional about what we're doing. If we think we're in a transitional space, or if we think we're ending something, of course, the beginning of one thing is the ending of another, always. So, Vedana is something very primal, common to all kinds of forms of life, not only humans. From the smallest single-celled organisms to the very large multi-celled beings. With contact, there's feeling. And for life, a basic sense of what is to be gotten or what's to be avoided and ameliorated is essentially important for all forms of life, even the very small single cell. At its root, this is very pure and simple. There's this meeting between sense contact, consciousness, some kind of consciousness, and Vedana, at least, Vedana. All forms of life share this. We are all united in this. We all meet in this. Or at least all unenlightened or not yet fully awakened beings meet in this. Aiming for our welfare. They're aiming for their welfare. While fully awakened beings, having accomplished their welfare, simply aim to support others' access to the highest good, the highest welfare. It's not wrong for us to wish for our well-being and our welfare, is it? And that of others. But when distortions come in, with the vipallasa, it becomes complicated, convoluted. We come to desire what's harmful for ourselves or others, dislike and push away from or reject what will be helpful for us or others. A revolution of attitude is really needed to turn that around. A revolution of will. To have the will to do so. For some, this will come through hearing or reading. As our view opens, we realize what we need to know. Seeing it for ourselves, our motivation realigns. Then our values and efforts realign. For some, this comes from the Maranasati section. Others from Anicca, Anicca Sanya, Anicca Bhavana. In various ways, our motivation then realigns. It's a kind of awakening. Our values and efforts then realign. For others, this will come through self-investigation, through inquiry, and through then seeing and knowing directly for ourselves. The Buddha provides us here with tools for both. The Satipatthanas are specifically said by the ancient commentators to be designed to counter the vipalasas, the principal distortions of view, distortions of perception, which are at the root of all harm, confusion, and suffering, that make us misunderstand and apply our efforts wrongly. Here we have a powerful method to apply our efforts rightly in ways that will be supportive and effective. So now I'd like to shift gears in a way, mindfully, intentionally, shift gears. This is an alert for tech support. So last week I shared a verse from the Mahapajapati Gautami Therī Apadana, or Mahagautami Apadana, and we looked at it in light of the Satipatthana teachings and practice. I can't see everyone who's here online, but all those who are here in person present were here together then. So around that time, a friend of our community who was present with us last time sent a video of two statues which I'd seen photos of before at the Gangarama Raja Mahavihara temple in Sri Lanka. Thai Bhikkhunis ordained in Sri Lanka on pilgrimage had gone there and sent me photos of mysterious life-size statues of Bhikkhunis hanging from the walls on either side of the main entrance, opposite the main Buddha images in the very center of the temple. Who were they? A friend of a friend sent through this short video clip 2 months later, which shows in Sinhala, for any of you who are Sinhala readers, painted on the wall who they are. This is not meant to be a high-quality video. This is someone's very kind, on request, going to this temple and just quickly taking this video that shows who they are. We'll see whether we can share with you or not. I had never seen anything like it before. They look like bhikkhunis hanging from the walls on both sides. So if anyone here is a Sinhala reader, then you might already know who they are. So this is in the beautiful main hall opposite the central image of the Buddha. You can see both of them here. Thank you very much for sharing that with us. So who were they? The painted script says, according to our friends who speak and read Sinhalese language, who came to offer dana a couple of days ago, the painted script says that they're Mahapajapati Gautami Therī, foster mother of the Buddha. Someone might have put in the chat, foster mother of the Buddha and founding mother of the Buddha's Bhikkhunī Sangha. And Yasodhara Therī, mother of the Buddha's son Rahula, also known as Rahula Mata, and one of his foremost leading Bhikkhunī disciples. As a leading Bhikkhunī disciple, she was also known as Pada Kachana, foremost in a kind of psychic power that enables seeing far, far back in the past. And the ability to do this is one of the three vijas, or super knowledges, of the Arahants. So you know there are the three Vedas back then, but the Buddha then had the three vijas, or vijas of the Arahants, the super knowledges of the Arahants. But not all the Arahants can see equally far back into myriad eons of universal expansion and contraction. Some of the old texts say that Yasodhara Therī had this ability even more than the Buddha's chief disciples, Sariputta and Mahamoggallana. And she herself says in one old text, if that's her speaking, even more than the Buddha himself. This is from a Sinhalese manuscript. So in the chat, please. What is it? Mayatri is saying it's Mahapajapati and Yasodhara Bhikkhunī. And they are performing psychic acts. So contemplating Vedana this past week has been so valuable and illuminating. Even it's just a beginning. For myself, over the past years, then I've had the benefit of a lot of time teaching, instructions, retreats, things like this, focused on mindfulness of the body, mindfulness of breathing. Also, we had our whole 3-month period of time focused on Cittanupassana. And then the elements of Dhammanupassana are also taught. And Vedanānupassana has come up, within that context over time. You can't really practice just one without the others coming up. Yeah, they do. But time to really focus in on just the Vedanānupassana. This is so precious, and I'm delighted we don't know the future, but I'm delighted at the thought of having the time going forth for the next week at least, still to be able to be looking into and investigating, researching, exploring, training, working with. The exercise that we just went through in the meditation, I found working with it like that is actually quite hard work. It's quite intensive. I felt like having had a workout afterwards. Then I started us with our familiar mindfulness of the body and breath, and ended with that because I myself found that it's not good to just go completely into Vedanānupassana and just focus exclusively on that. If you have a base of practice already developed in something like mindfulness of the body and mindfulness of the breath, I would recommend continuing with that, and then additionally giving yourself time to further work with, study, contemplate, explore informal meditation practice, and then also in various kinds of circumstances to explore, investigate, see what you can know, what you can learn, working with this. But I wouldn't suggest taking it up just that exclusively. during this time. Yes, giving time that is focused for it, study, contemplation, and practice, but not only that. So, with looking into then Vedanānupassana and Vedana, I actually then remembered we received these videos, then this video, and I remembered reading the Uposatha Therī Abhidhana in past years, which in the Pali text appears in the Khuddaka Nikaya, Pali text canon, following shortly after the Therigatha. The Therī Abhidhana is sometimes said to be the younger sister of the Therigatha. Where the Therigatha ends, the Therī Abhidhana begins. Ends with Sumedha, begins with Sumedha, Therī. It's one of the two texts of the Buddha's leading Bhikkhunī disciples, where the glorious and heroic stories of their parinibbana are told. Yasodhara, although the same age as the Buddha, passed away, according to this text, 2 years before him, at the age of 78. She was not part of the group that passed into parinibbana with Mahapajapati Gautami and her following per these texts. She herself was also preeminent among Sangha members and had a following of thousands of her own. I remembered something of her story with regards to Vedana that was calling me, which I would like to turn to now. Vedana, samana sukha dukkha. In repeated verses in her Abhidhana, this is in the Uposatha Therī Abhidhana, she speaks of her long time experiences of pleasure and pain, sukha and dukkha, which figures strongly in her extraordinary memories of the past, back to ancient, old past. But there's something in how she speaks about them, a perspective that's especially compelling. Perhaps it might be said to be the perspective of the long haul. What does that mean? The wisdom gained from much experience, long experience over time, being able to look back on that, review that, what one has learned from that, what one has gained from that over time. The wisdom gained from much experience. And the equanimity or balance in dedication with regards to pleasure and pain, sukha and dukkha vedana. That's so remarkable here. In fact, she emerges as a strong advocate for, with dedication and resolve, cultivating these very qualities. Her Abhidhana is nearly 100 verses long, though one of the longest in the whole collection, although not as long as the Gautami Therī Abhidhana, which really ranks in length. So, in the CTS edition of the Tipitaka, this is verse 357 in that particular chapter. PTS, Pali Text Society, gives each of them their own verse numberings, so it's verse 37. So she says, Sukha pathanumodami nacha dukhesu dhumanam sabata tulita homi tuyataya mahamuni. So she's saying that she doesn't rejoice in happiness and doesn't grieve when there's trouble. At all moments I'm the same, for your sake, O great sage. So she has a lot of verses that reflect strong, strong dedication to the Buddha. Some people have said for family people, like they may have strong dedication to their husband or wife, or to their children, or to their parents, or to their friends. Or also we can see sometimes in monastic life such strong dedication to one's teachers, one's students. This kind of thing seems to be there very much in her character. Now, I haven't found any translation of her Abhidhamma that I really like. I thought about actually doing one. I'm not sure about this translation, but I want to share with you a couple of the words. One of the key words here. She says, Sabhata tulita homi. Tulita means like weighed. This is talking about sukha and dukkha. So weighed or balanced. It also means like to examine, to compare, and to be well considered, measured, and equal in one's actions. So this is not necessarily talking about only actions of the body or physical actions, but actions of mind, mano kamma. Yes? And this word is said to be a synonym of jnata. Now jnata, then, we find it, and when I looked it up, then like it has Greek forms, because related to gnosis. But it means known or well known. So if we're talking about sukha and dukkha here, then for these to be known, not only a little bit known, but well known, experienced, much experienced, brought to knowledge and realized, this is the jnata. So this is also explicated. Tulita is then explicated in a way related to ditta and to vidita. So vidita, you might know, then also means to know, to examine, to find out, to know through experience. And our word Vedana, then also, it is a medium. Vedana is a medium to know experience, to know through experience. So here we find then Vedyati. It's being related then specifically, not only in her verse, in the way she's relating it, but then in definition also being related to Vedana, but particularly with the qualities to know, to examine, to find out, and our knowing through experience. So in a way, this is like a play on Vedana, because we're applying these qualities to Vedana, or is Vedana itself that when we get to know it, when we understand and realize what it is. So this is very revealing, for indeed, this is both a cause to cultivate and also a result of practicing with Vedana and with knowing in the way prescribed here by the Buddha in this Vedanānupassana training and practice. So I'd like to look at one more of her nearly 100 verses. I didn't prepare them for you in slides this time, but we have one slide that was prepared by our tech support. So she says then in this verse, which is number 13 in the Pali Text Society numbering, she's saying, then reflecting back on her time in the Shakyan Antipura inner city, palace city, her life there. She says, Kanya Sara Sahasa Pamukha. So she was at the head of, it says, 1,000 maidens in the house of the Shakyan son, Shakyaputta Nirayasane. In the house of the Shakyan son, the translator says they were like goddesses. I'm not sure why, but because it says that later on. And then she says something that I want to look into here further with regards to Vedana. So she has so many verses that relate to Vedana. This is why I was remembering about this, because it really stands out in her Apadana. In this particular verse, the next word is long. It's a compound word. Samana sukha dukkhata. And then we get the devatas. Devata vyanandane. So, samana sukha dukkhata. So we have several different words here. Samana is one. Samana is used for being like-minded. But then also samana is used for being like same-minded or even-minded. So it's saying samana sukha dukkhata. So with regards to sukha and with regards to dukkha, ta means states of sukha, states of dukkha, then means like one's mind is steady, like having kind of like same mind. So it could mean that all of them who are there, those 1,000 kanya who are like devatas in the Nandana gardens in the heavens, means this is the legendary Nandana garden. Did you ever hear of it? Some of the meditation monks in Thailand and said they had visions of the Nandana garden and all the devatas who are the heavenly ladies who are there, and it's like its very name means bliss or joy. The name of the garden is bliss, this heavenly gardens. But she's saying that the situation for them in some way was like that, and yet talking about the sukha and the dukkha, so much sukha and dukkha, and samana sukha dukkhata. I find this really useful to just have the idea and to contemplate and even have a kind of intention or motivation for developing this kind of level of equanimity. And it's not just like an enforced equanimity, but coming through this practice, through looking into, through seeing the rising, through seeing the falling and passing, the rising and falling, the internal and the external, really looking into it. Is it from the body? Is it not from the body? And discerning between them, all of that, doing the work of this, one can see, if one even starts to do it a bit, how it's such a great equalizer. I even feel sorry in some ways, because a few years ago then there was a great mindfulness conference in Colombo that was organized by Satipatthanas, which is like a strong mindfulness movement in Sri Lanka for mindful schools and various kinds of mindful trainings. Then I was invited to be a speaker for this conference, and felt that was a great honor, because other very great renowned monks and teachers and leaders in the mindfulness movement in Sri Lanka and around the world then were present and were speakers, and also a little bit embarrassed because I was the only Bhikkhunī who was invited. But some people said, you should, because you can be invited, you can do this. And that's helpful, that's good, so you should do it. So I did. So then I was asked to speak on and give a presentation and meditation on what is there in Satipatthanas that can be helpful for interfaith and interreligious conflicts. Oh my goodness, you can see, if anyone here is from Sri Lanka or knows anything about Sri Lanka, then also how sensitive these issues are and why it's so good to invite a foreign monastic to talk about this. Because you can just understand why, right? And also because I don't live in Sri Lanka, in case, then I can escape to my home country now. But I'm joking a little bit, but it's so sensitive and it's so important, yeah? And so I chose to talk because of having, the quite a bit of training and education with mindfulness of the body, and then working a lot with the great elemental properties. And I chose to speak about that and how that, when worked with mindfulness of the body, how really that it can be an avenue for realizing non-self. And it's a great equalizer, because when you're looking internally and externally with regards to the great elemental properties, you're looking bones internally, then you're looking bones, I'm looking at someone here, bones externally. You train yourself like that, like immediately. You can just, the people who do that, they can just immediately see like bones and skin and flesh and blood and all these things, and for the contents of the body, and then also for the elemental properties. So if we're just looking at like earth element, and for all living beings, as well as for all, of course, for all other human beings, and also for the people of other races, nationalities, ethnicities. So it's a great, great equalizer. And I found that, so helpful and so powerful to work with in past years. So then my presentation was about that, on that. And then it's supposed to be like something that can be used for training in the schools, in mindful schools also, to like help people humanize each other rather than, dehumanize each other, was the way that it was presented to me, yes? For the sake of harmony and peace and non-conflict, and, looking upon one another with eyes of loving kindness, to blend like milk and water, as all words of the Buddha, that the Buddha said. So, okay, I'm happy to share Dhamma. The Dhamma is good. The Dhamma is helpful. So I'm not going to talk about in that case, I'm not going to talk about any history or any particular people or anything like that, just going to talk about this Dhamma. And this Dhamma is good, and this Dhamma is helpful, and it's of blessing and benefit for those who practice it. So good. I can trust in that. I don't have to worry about all the other things. I just do what I'm invited and stay with the Dhamma. Make it simple and, just from a simple and good heart. But in this last week, looking at Vedana and thinking about, this training of looking at the Vedana internally and externally, I see also how likewise it has this kind of power. This same kind of power. It's a kind of equalizing power, because we're all equal in this. We all share in this together, not only all of humanity and all human beings of whatever categories, but also all living beings and all forms of life. And it's so, of course, with the great elemental properties as well. Even, if we talk about bones, then, has to have bones, right? But if we look at the, jellyfish or something, then, but with the great elemental properties, it's just for all kinds of physical forms of life, it's like this. And when we talk about Vedana, it's not only beings with these kinds of physical bodies, but really for there being Vedana, then we're talking about most all kinds of the beings, except for when there's the cessation of perception and feeling in the particular level of meditation. For arupa jhanas, then there's the level of meditation where there's the cessation of perception and feeling, and these correspond also to very high realms of consciousness that we can access as human beings in our meditation, but also there are beings who don't have bodies as we have now that are just with consciousness, they're just abiding in these realms, in these states for long periods of time, but still not permanent. Yeah, still anicca, and still there's this strata of dukkha that's there for all of them. Still is some underlying dukkha that's there. It's not the same as nibbana or parinibbana. It's not the same as that. So let's take a look then. It says, surrounded by 1,000 maidens in the house of the Shakyan sun, like goddesses, and delightful one, they are the same in pleasure and pain. That's the translation. But so then let's look carefully again at this samana sukha dukkhata, this training ourselves in this way. The state of being of one mind or of the same mind in pleasure and in pain. So this is translated as equanimity, impartiality, and we find in some of the Pali texts this as being among the factors for accomplishing the paramis, the method of fulfilling the perfection actually here, surprisingly, of sila parami. Why would this be a quality that would be supportive for strengthening, developing our sila parami? And if we look at the circumstances, different kinds of strife between various peoples or various beings, we can quickly understand how this could be important. Even in relationships between people, isn't it often the sila, when does the sila get broken? Normally, when there's some sukha, it's an issue with the sukha and with the dukkha, isn't it? Almost always. Sometimes it's with boredom. Not sukha, not dukkha, and going to, mostly when people, if they're not practicing well with Vedanānupassana, then the state of neither sukha nor dukkha Vedana, for most people, it's said there's an underlying feeling tone of dukkha. Why? Because it's not satisfying. Why is it not satisfying? Because there's something in the mind that's looking for that hit of sukha or looking for that hit of dukkha. It's like primed for looking, where is the feeling of pleasure, where is the feeling of pain, and there's no satisfaction in whether positive or negative satisfaction. There's no feeding of that tanha, of that, the tanha and the upadana for bhava, vibhava, tanha. There's no feeling. It's not satisfying because it's not feeding the craving, right? And so then there's the underlying craving that's like wishing for some sukha or even some dukkha. Just it's like it's like patrols in our mind that are going around, right? That are just looking for where is the sukha, where is the dukkha, continuously going on to find where is the sukha, where is the dukkha, and some kind of ping of it. We think, no, I don't want to find dukkha, right? But it's there on patrol, like, there. And then we go to boredom. If it's not there, this is different than equanimity. Very, very different than equanimity. It's not the same thing as equanimity. Equanimity is this other is unstable. It's unstable with this underlying feeling tone of dukkha and dissatisfaction, which is why people feel bored and then they want to do something to stimulate themselves and to get, something else, even if it's some kind of dukkha, right? As long as it's something, not that, this boredom. But upekkha is not like that. Upekkha is wonderful. Upekkha feels stable, not in a solid way or a hard way, but not unstable, and feels like the underlying feeling tone is said to be of sukha. It's a pleasurable experience, even in terms of the levels of, when we're talking about levels of these three kinds of feeling. So it's like the sensual level, of sensuality, of sukha and of dukkha, and of neither sukha nor dukkha. And then the next level up, then you get sukha that comes from the jhanas, yes? And piti and sukha from the jhanas, and then the dukkha of the hindrances is at least temporarily suppressed. It's much less, and so this is a much more refined kind of sukha. And then up from that, then you get the upekkha, which is even more deep and clear and profound. And so it's not called, not that active like piti, excited, kind of activation in the body, that's the piti and that kind of sukha, but even more, it's a pleasure, a kind of sukha that's even more deep and wonderful and profound. And then we want to know, really, we don't like not knowing so much. And then the upekkha, what we're able to see and know with upekkha is a medium. There we can really start to see and know the things much more clearly. And seeing and knowing is something pleasurable and satisfying for us as human beings. Unknowing is something that's generally uncomfortable, and to fill the void, then grasping comes up, trying to grasp at ideas, grasp at concepts, grasp at views, grasp at judgments, trying to get something to assuage this discomfort in the absence of being deluded and not knowing and being bored and, wanting something to get something. So it's very different, profoundly different than that. But let me come back here. Let me come back. So then in the definition or in relationship to the samana sukha dukkhata, this state of being in the same mind with regards to pleasure and pain, then part of the definition, as I was saying, is the samana attata, equanimity. It relates to equanimity. So we find this also being very commonly used in the Sanskrit and Prakrit as well. Samanartata. So it gets translated also as similarity of purpose, and it's called one of the four bases of sympathy. It takes a recognition that if we're looking deeply into sukha and dukkha and this condition with Vedana, and we understand for all living beings this similarity of purpose, that we have at a very deep, deep level, then this is a basis for equalization. And in our minds for, this insight, then through this understanding for a stabilization of mind. So then this gets connected to something that's called the Chatur Sangraha Vastu. Now we put our tech support on alert again. In Pali, these are called the Chattari Sangaha Vatuni. Chattari Sangaha Vatuni. These are translated, I'm going to start with one of my favorite translations, as Buddhist cardinal principles for peace and harmony within ourselves, in individual relationships with other people and other beings, and even at the level of families, communities, society, and for humanity. Buddhist cardinal principles for peace and harmony. This is the deeper, broader application. Ajahn Thanissaro calls these Chattari Sangaha Vatuni 4 grounds for the bonds of fellowship, and makes much in his teaching about them with regards to the Sangha and Sangha harmony, community. Bhante Sujato translates these as ways of being inclusive. Venerable Bhikkhu Bodhi translates as 4 means, Chattari is 4 means of sustaining a favorable relationship. It's also translated as 4 factors conducive to social solidarity and community. 4 bases of sympathy. In Mahayana Buddhism, these are called 4 ways of embracing sentient beings. In the Mahayana context, these 4 are called 4 all-embracing virtues, and are called the 4 activities of a bodhisattva, the 4 embracing means for bodhisattvas to embrace and save beings. Here I would like to briefly remind that per classical Theravada Pali text Buddhist teachings, all of us now here who are resolved on Bodhi, awakening and liberation as Savakas or Savikas, that is, as disciples of the Buddha, are also considered to be Savaka Bodhisattvas or Savaka Bodhisattvas, like Yasodhara Therī long ago. From the time she saw the ancient Buddha Dipankara up to 2 weeks after her entering monastic life as a bhikkhuni, when she realized Sambodhi and Nibbana for herself. One more translation that's my favorite. 4 bases of beneficence. I'd like to put in a good word for beneficence. It's a word we have in English that we're not using often these days, and it has such good meaning. Beneficence. Oh, I'd like to revive this word because I don't hear it often, and it's just so good. So, 4 bases of beneficence. Samana Sukha Dukkata. This one is in Sanskrit from the Sangraha Vastu. Thus, he becomes one who subjugates the works of Mara. This is with regards to the Sangraha Vastu, which means in Pali the Sangaha Vatuni. Thus they become one who subjugates the works of Mara. What then is the subjugation of the works of Mara? By means of which Mara cannot find a weak point. in the Bodhisattva. So whether a Sāvaka Bodhisattva means disciple of the Buddha in the early Buddhist teachings, or one who is training and dedicated to becoming a Sambuddha, that kind of Bodhisattva, which we have in South and Southeast Asian Theravada traditions as well. I know several in Thailand who made vows to Buddhahood, also several in Sri Lanka as well. Even the very famous commentator on the Pali text, Acharya Buddhaghosa, you see at the end, he mentions his vow to Buddhahood. Wow, oh my goodness. Did you know that? Yeah, it's there in the colophon. Near at the very end, he mentions his dedication. And now is the time for text support. I'd like to share with you what are these four. And they contain this, what is said to be the samana sukha dukkhata here, with regards to Vedana, because it's included within these four bases, whether we call them four cardinal principles for peace and harmony, four grounds for the bonds of fellowship, four ways of being inclusive, or four bases of beneficence. So you look up here, samana sukha dukkhata. You can't see. If you'd like to, you can come around to be able to see. So the four sanghavatus, chattari sanghavatuni, generosity and endearing speech, attentiveness to what is beneficial and meaningful in relationship with one another, the state of balance and equipoise in all things, wherever, whatever may arise. These dhammas in the world are like the linchpin in the moving cart. So first mentioned there is dana, and then piyavacha. Then dana is generosity. Piyavacha, then piya is like beloved and endearing speech. It can be internal and external. Atacharya cha. Atacharya then is attentiveness to what is beneficial, meaningful, and connected to the goal in ourselves and in relationship with one another. And then we come down to the this text, these words that we were looking. Are we back? Oh, so I hope you are having good Dhamma discussion, or that Venerable Ekāyano continued and completed in giving my Dhamma talk during this time. We just had just at the moment of coming up on the key word, samana atata chatamesu tata tata yata arahang. The power just went out. Everything here went down. So it was impressive. It just all went out. So then tech support was showing this. We lost screen share. Oh, okay. Yes. We don't need to see it anymore anyway. It's okay. Yes. Well done, Higher Brahmawada. I was back just in time. So I want to be like the Buddha and then ask, what were you discussing and how were you during this time? So I was just wanting to say then, like the linchpin in the moving cart, it says here, these dhammas in the world are like the linchpin in the moving cart, coming back to where it all comes together again. So actually this one verse that we were looking at, is truly an excellent summary of what is exemplified in all of Yasodhara Theri's nearly 100 Nibbana verses. These could be a summary of her life's or her lives Dhamma. And after describing myriad lifetimes of dedication and striving in the context of partnership and relationship, she finally says, Katang me saranamatano. As the Buddha advised to all of us at the time of his own parinibbana, she says, refuge has been found in myself. She had become her own sammo sarana. Her own body, feelings, and mind had become the sacred place of the appearance, manifestation, and sharing of the Dhamma. So for this verse that I was sharing here, I would like to thank our Kalyanamitta, Ajahn Pasano, Lungpo Pasano, for speaking on the Chattari Sanghavatuni in person on the occasion of our opening blessings here at Dhammadharini Monastery back in 2016, sitting amidst the Mahasangha, bhikkhus and bhikkhunis and Dhamma friends, the fourfold or manifold Sangha, in the place where our Dana Sala and Sima now stand. In fact, our Dhammadharini Bhada Sima, inaugurated just last year in the September full moon, was named the Apula Sala Sima, which means the barb removed. The barb is the thorn, the arrowhead, or the tip of the spear that's said to be the detriment with regards to dukkha. As some of you or many of you know, it's the removal and non-continuance of the affliction of that second arrow dukkha, that suffering that can be removed, that is ceased, ended, and not caused. That's the first great work and great benefit of Vedanānupassana. This work, this training with Vedana, this makes all the difference in the world. I recognize in myself the tendency to want to share so much more about Vedana in this training, and there is so much more to share. But I think I must leave it here for now, and we know, fortunately, that Ayya Brahmawara will be speaking more on this topic tomorrow evening, and then also this coming Sunday for all of our benefit and happiness. Now, we had a little break with our all our things going out here. For anyone who would like to remain, who is still here and would like to remain a little bit longer, I'd like to offer some time for comments, for Q&A. At least 5 minutes. Anyone here online or in person have something they would like to share or to say, to ask? Yes, please.
Thank you for explaining the difference between being neutral and being equanimous. Because in my mind, because I'm not have been practicing for very long, I was wondering if it was the same thing. But what you've explained is there's such a big difference between the two. So it helps me to understand the neutral can go into the boredom, can go into all of that, but the equanimity is something so much deeper. So thank you for that.
Thank you for mentioning that. You know, I found this something useful to look into myself, and I've heard it to be so for others as well. Excuse me, I have to turn the mic back this way. So there is there is not exactly a word for neutral that we're using here in Pali, although it often gets translated as neutral feeling. The name of this third feeling is neither sukha nor dukkha. So it's simply that there's no like gross sukha or dukkha that's appearing, that seems to be present. And we can just observe for ourselves and for others also outside. If that's so, what's it like? What's it happening? So for those who are deep meditators, those who practice or have practiced a lot with mindfulness, Satipatthanas, or with the jhanas, then they might have these experiences of, the Satipatthanas, working with it in the kinds of ways as taught in the Mahasatipatthana Sutta. It does have this great kind of equalizing quality with regards to sukha and dukkha, and it does tend towards equanimity and upekkha. Yes? So when we practice with deeper meditation, if we're practicing with jhana meditation also, then for the person who then enters into the second jhana and goes from the second jhana into the third jhana, then also they may become familiar with equanimity, or those who are practicing with the 4 apamanas or 4 brahmaviharas as apamanas, with metta, loving kindness, karuna, compassion, mudita, appreciative joy, and then with upekkha. So it's a level of Vedana, then that upekkha, then whether that's through the brahmaviharas as apamanas or through the jhanas, then particularly there's a meeting point of those in the 4th jhana that's like the ideal, said to be like the ideal place for insight, for really looking into and investigating the things, because the level of clarity and stability and like depth, even you could say like fluency, non-distortion, non-occlusion of the mind in this state. So it's said that one can come to that through going through the jhanas and coming to the 4th jhana with the purification of upekkha, then also with the apamanas, metta, karuna, mudita, and then the upekkha. Then the upekkha is said to actually be in one way, it's said to be the highest of all 4 of those. But if one is going to practice at the apamana level of metta, not just having metta for oneself and metta for a neutral person and metta for one who one has issues with, not only just that, that's all like limited. But if one practices according to the sutta, then this is called the apamana, and then this is to liberate. These are liberations of mind, because going to not only greatness of mind, but to boundlessness. It's freeing with these qualities, really, if we're going to talk about actual unconditional love. Most of the time that people are talking about unconditional love, it's not like that. Maybe it's moving kind of like in that direction, but normally not, right? When you talk about unconditional love for one's child, normally they're being the child, your child, if that's one's own child, normally that's one of the conditions that's quite active there, and one's sense of identity with that other being. So when the Buddha is talking about opening this up, then this is to open up, beyond, not only for the mother's love for their only child, but to all beings like this. But then when we go into the apamanas, then it's not only even talking about all beings, it's still like that's a bounded concept. It's a very broad, vast concept, but still it's a conception. There's a conception of all beings. And if we work with it to the point of it becoming like a liberation of mind, then you have to unhinge it from all these kinds of concepts and conditions, and just like first you say vast, but then you go to the boundless, unlimited. So then this is getting into what's then called moving into what's the unconditional. So then the upekkha part can be said actually to be an aspect. When we're talking about the apamanas, to be an aspect, even like the aspect that helps to get into the unconditionality and the boundlessness with regards to the metta, with regards to the karuna, with regards to the mudita. Sometimes I like to say it's like able to touch and hold absolutely everything, and then also to pass through absolutely everything. And this, for our thoughts about what is unconditional, then this seems right, doesn't it? When we're talking about unconditional love, able to touch, able to hold, able to see, know absolutely everything, whatever it may be. And this is like in this verse that we're looking at here as well. It's saying tata tata yata yatara yatararahang. It's a little bit hard for me to pronounce. But this saman atata chatamesu tata yatararahang. This means really whatever, wherever, whatever arises, whatever is happening, however it may be. It's good for us to say this. It's good for us to think this. It's good for us to contemplate this, which is why I brought it up, because it's so helpful to even have the idea and to think about it, and like to generate this kind of idea and sense and intention or motivation, even to begin to, like with the wish to begin to cultivate and develop this and understand that it is possible. So something I find so interesting with regards to the gender dynamics is then in some kind of like culture that I grew up with, and sometimes people thought it's like the man who's supposed to be the steady one. It's like always to be the steady one in the midst of everything, and like whatever happens, then supposed to at least like pretend, maybe not really feeling like that, but like show for one's family, show for one's wife, show for one's children, show for one's parents, to like define like that, to be a man. Then but can you really do that just with your gender? No, of course not. Cannot. It's not truly a gender Dhamma. It's something that we made up, and then like we ask for that, right? We want to have somebody who's like that, who we can rely on, right? Don't we wish to have somebody who's like that when the things are difficult, who's going to be equanimous, who's going to be steady? We want to see that. We want to know that. This is talking about really developing and cultivating this in oneself. One of the verses that I'm not showing here of the Uposatha Therī Apadana actually shows a different kind of concept. One of the verses there says explicitly, for Yashodhara, she's saying what it means to be a woman in her position, being like the head of all of these women and being like the chief consort, and in this whole kind of thing like this, is that this is what was expected of her and what was expected of women in her culture, to be the steady one, to be the one who's always there, to be the one who's always loving, to be the one who's always caring, to be the one who's able to maintain the equanimity with the children's laughing or the children's crying, or the husband's business is going well or not going well, or the armies have gone out and they've been successful, the armies have gone out, they've been defeated. All these kinds of things like this, like she's supposed to be the core, she's supposed to be the center that's like able to hold all of that with these qualities. And so from what she's saying, it's like there was an idea that the woman, the mother, that there was a woman in the family who's supposed to be like that, right? I thought, oh, that's like the complete opposite of what I grew up with. But again, just by your gender, can you do that? Just because you're a mother, can you do that? No, it's not something that comes with gender. The people may want, the children may cry and laugh and pull your hair and, you know, vomit on you and all this. And she's like, Mom, you're supposed to be equanimous and supposed to be like the, I love you in pleasure and in pain. You got an A, I love you. You got an F, I love you. But it's so difficult, isn't it? We can't, just because we're a mother, just because we're a father, just because we're a male, just because we're a female, for any of things, it doesn't, even the people want it, they expect. No, but through this Vedanānupassana and through these other qualities that are here in the trainings, the Satipattana trainings, we have ways that we can begin to at least work with and address these, not just in pretense, not just trying to act like that because it's expected of us, because we think we have to, it's what we think to be, you know, a good man, a good woman, a good parent, a good whatever partner, whatever that may be, but to really do that work. All of us do wish for that. But this is really, as Uposatha Therī says, then she found then herself finally, as the Buddha also said, how to find the refuge, to make the refuge in herself, in oneself, through this Dhamma. These are among the last words of the Buddha advising us to do this. Yes. So thank you for asking and mentioning about that. You know, I love the Dhamma so much, so then I get going about something, then it's like a timeless realm, boundless, timeless. And now I know it's gotten late, but I want to check if anyone else has anything they would especially like to share or ask. One more. Tech support has allowed me to see some of those who are joining us. So I want to say greetings to all of you who are here. Yes, Ruanti.
Everyone Saranai.
Everyone Saranai.
Before we leave, I want to say these teachings are so much value, so gratitude from the bottom of my heart.
Ruanti, I couldn't hear what you said. Let me check if someone else could.
I can repeat it. I said before we leave, I want to say the teachings are of so much value and benefit.
Oh,
so thank you so much.
My great appreciation to the Buddha for the hard work of awakening. I can't even imagine what it would be like. Well, you know, I remember as a young person with an inquiring mind and feeling pressing in my heart the sufferings of humanity and the big questions about things, with a lot of doubt and care. Sometimes I felt like even like my heart's going to explode, because I didn't understand like how to, at that time, how to hold the things, the magnitude of suffering and all these doubts and also the training for how to release and how to expand, one's mind and heart, how to hold, how to sit with, how to approach, how to sit with, how to be with, and to know the things. So I just want to express my enormous gratitude. The Buddha, we understand, lived a long time ago, and that these Dhamma teachings have been passed down to us, and these living practice, traditions, sometimes even just one or a few dedicated practitioners then who've shared that Dhamma with us. And I always remember those who even like traveled on the dusty Silk Road and fell down steep gorges, or died of thirst in the desert, or the maritime Silk Road, and who encountered large sea creatures and storms, and worked so hard to transmit and share the texts, sometimes lost after years of collection. It's just to think about all of them, those who gave so many hundreds, if not thousands, of their hours of their lives to memorize the teachings, to pass them on, to be handwriting, copying for hours, days, months, years of their life, with what may have been the pain in their hand, pain in their shoulder, pain in their back, in their hips, in their neck, to do that. I learned that writing as a young monastic like that, and it's rigorous, it's painful, not to mention to do the work of the meditation, the patience and the dedication, the heart to really, for ourselves, and also, with love for others, with care for others, and with care for our world, to really do the work of this path of practice. So I just want to deeply appreciate and anumodhana to all of them over time, and especially to the Arahants, all those who've entered the noble stream. I think it takes a great heart. Like the noble Satipattha, we understand he made strong effort. He's like trying, and even his friend is like already completely awakened earlier on, and still he's not, and trying, and doing the work that needs to be done, to be able to say, for those who've done that and then been able to say, I've done the work that needed to be done. It is such a blessing and a boon to have this time for everyone's offerings of the technology that works most of the time like a miracle, to be able to share. And this space, this building, the robes that we're wearing, the food that was offered today, the medicines that have supported our life, so we still have life even in these years. For all, for everyone who has supported through their offerings in so many ways, I just want to deeply appreciate and rejoice. And if whatever merit there may be in our practice, in our sila on this Uposatha day, and in our mindfulness and our meditation, in our listening to, reading, contemplating, sharing, discussing the Dhamma, whatever merits there may be in this. May that be a blessing for all of them, especially our preceptors and teachers and Dhamma friends and mentors and our parents and grandparents who have given us life, who have given us the Dhamma. And then also it's really important, I think, then for all of that great mass of merit, and also to dedicate that to our own work, our kamatan, with this Satipatthanas and all the awakening factors, all the factors of the path, to really dedicate all of these merits to their furthering, their deepening, their progressing, and their bearing fruit in insight, in noble insight, vision, wisdom, and in liberation, knowledge and vision of liberation for ourselves. So it is right and proper for us to dedicate in this way, and we shouldn't forget to do so. It's a powerful thing to do so. If we feel that our own merits are not enough for that, then let us recollect, let us use that as a motivation to do what we feel is worthy, what we know is worthy. And we can also recollect the merit of the Arahants, the merit of the Sambuddha, and in our refuge, in ourself, turn to this. This is the great Jnanamataya, Patisatimataya. In this regard, really, when there's the knowing, just the knowing is there with this, and we have the reflective mindfulness and awareness coming back to this. I think I've said too much already. Let me stop there, but it's of such great benefit to recollect, really to, like for sadhana, to reflect in this way. It can strengthen and support our path. So, with apologies for being late, I'd like to also briefly mention then and announce Sayadaw Ujagara, one of our teachers, mentors, Kalyanamitta, has very kindly accepted our invitation to teach 2 weeks from now on the upcoming full moon Uposatha, when we'll be moving into focusing on the Cittanupassana teachings and practices. So I want to welcome anyone and everyone to join in Brahmawada's teaching tomorrow and ongoing, and to join for the next Uposatha with Sayadaw Ujagara, and most of all to join in contemplating, looking into, investigating, training with these Satipatthanas as much as we can, as consistently as we can, on an ongoing basis during this time, such that our efforts gain momentum a kind of coherence and continence with, what's the word, momentum for our growth in the path and the realization, the fruition of our noble intentions. Please welcome to join me in Arahant, whether facing an image of the Buddha, creating an image of the Buddha in your mind or heart, or just your sense of refuge, turning to your sense of refuge with gratitude. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Bhagava Buddhaṃ Bhagavantem Abhivademi. Buddho menato Sawakato Bhagavata Dhammam Dhammang Namasami. Dhammo menato Supatipannom Bhagavato Sāvaka Sangham Sanghang Namami. Sangho menato. Thank you very much to everyone for joining us.